I don't have to wear this? Are you sure? I thought this was safety training. Oh, okay. Well, hello. I'd like to take a second to talk to you about OSHA. Why? Because OSHA has revised its hazard communication standard to align with the United Nations globally harmonized system of classification and labeling of chemicals, also known as GHS. Two significant changes contained in the revised standard require the use of new labeling elements and a standardized format for safety data sheets, formerly known as Material Safety Data Sheets, or MSDS. OSHA is phasing in the specific requirements over several years with an anticipated end date of June 1st, 2016. The first compliance date of the revised hazard communication standard is December 1st, 2013. By this date, employers must have trained their workers on the new label elements in the new SDS format. This training video has been designed to meet these OSHA requirements. Based on these requirements, showing this training video to all of your employees by December 1st, 2013 is vital, while also documenting the date this training took place. Please note that the new labeling elements and safety data sheets are not required to be in place by December 1st, 2013, only training on what these changes entail. We'll begin our training with a review of the new GHS label elements. This is an example of a current ServPro product label. And this is an example of a new GHS required product label. The new product labels have 6 main areas that we will be reviewing: product identifiers, signal words, pictograms, hazard statements, and precautionary statements. The first part of the product label is product identifiers, which, as you can probably guess, identifies a hazardous chemical. The manufacturer can decide the appropriate identifier, but it must include the chemical name, code number, and batch number. The same identifier must also be on Section 1 of the SDS. Signal words are also an important part of the label, as they are used to indicate the severity of the hazard. The 2 signal words that can be used are danger or warning. Note that only one signal word can be used on the label, no matter how many hazards the chemical may have. If multiple hazards exist and one warrants danger, then only danger will appear on the label, as danger is the most severe of the hazard. Pictograms will also be found on the labels. 9 pictograms are possible, but at least 8 are required. For products with multiple hazards, all applicable pictograms will be used. Hazard statements are the 4th required label element. These statements describe the nature and, when appropriate, the degree of the hazard. For example, a hazard statement might be, causes damage to kidneys through prolonged or repeated exposure when absorbed through the skin. If similar precautionary statements are needed, only the one providing the most protection will be included on the label. Precautionary statements are the 5th label element. These statements list recommended measures that should be taken to minimize or prevent adverse effects resulting from exposure to a hazardous chemical or the improper storage or handling of the hazardous chemical. In addition to the 5 label elements we just discussed, product identifiers, signal words, pictograms, hazard statements, and precautionary statements, labels must also include the name, address, and phone number of the manufacturer, distributor, or product importer. Outside of equipping employees with knowledge needed to perform their jobs correctly in the safest environment possible, product labels also help to ensure proper storage of hazardous chemicals and can help employees quickly access information for first aid when needed by employees or emergency personnel. Now let's talk about the safety data sheets, or SDS. Here's an example of a current ServPro MSDS. Previously known as Material Safety Data Sheets, or MSDS, which you may already be familiar with. Beginning June 1st, 2015, the Hazard Communication Standard will require new safety data sheets that are provided in a consistent, uniform, user-friendly 16-section format. Here's a list of the 16 sections included on the new SDS. The new SDS must include the section numbers, headings, and associated information related to each section. Here's an example of the new safety data sheets, which we will reference as we take a closer look at each section. The first 2 sections provide much of the same information found on the product label. For example, Section 1, Identification, includes the product identifier, manufacturer, distributor name. supplier contact information including address, phone number, and emergency number, recommended use, and restrictions on use. Section 2, required information, provides an identification of product hazards along with warning information and classification such as flammable liquid. The signal word, hazard statements, pictograms, precautionary statements, and a description of any other hazards not otherwise classified. Section 3, composition information on ingredients, provides information on the chemical ingredients such as the substances, impurities, stabilizing additives and mixtures, as well as any other chemicals for which a trade secret is claimed. The fourth section, first aid measures, includes information on symptoms and effects, acute, delayed, and otherwise required treatment, as well as a description for initial care for exposure. SDS also includes firefighting measures as the fifth section and provides recommendations for extinguishing a fire caused by the chemical, such as appropriate extinguishing techniques, recommended equipment, and any chemical hazards that may result from a fire. Section 6 identifies accidental release measures, providing for an appropriate response to a chemical spill, both large and small, including emergency procedures, protective equipment needed, and proper methods of containment and cleanup. Handling and storage information can be found in Section 7, where precautions for safe handling and storage, including incompatibilities, are provided. Section 8, exposure controls, personal protection, lists OSHA's permissible exposure limits, or PELs, threshold limits, TLVs, appropriate engineering controls, and personal protective equipment. PEL is the legal limit in the United States for exposure of an employee to a chemical substance or physical agent. For chemicals, the chemical regulation is usually expressed in parts per million, or ppm. TLV is the level to which it is believed a worker can be exposed day after day for a working lifetime without adverse health effects. The basic concept behind engineering controls is that to the extent feasible, the work environment and the job itself should be designed to eliminate hazards or reduce exposure to hazards. Physical and chemical properties are provided in Section 9. Minimum required information includes the following items on this list. While the SDS may not contain every item because it may not be relevant or is not available, a notation to that effect must be made for that chemical property. Manufacturers may also add other relevant properties, such as dust deflagration for combustible dust used to evaluate dust explosive potential. Section 10 is titled Stability and Reactivity. Reactivity refers to a description of the specific test data for the chemical, while chemical stability indicates whether the chemical is stable or unstable under normal ambient temperature and conditions while in storage or being handled. Other information included in Section 10 could include an indication of the possibility of hazardous reactions, including a statement of whether the chemical will react or polymerize, which could release excess pressure or heat or create other hazardous conditions. If this reaction is possible, then a description of the conditions under which hazardous reactions may occur must be included. Here are some examples. Hazardous combustion products should also be included in Section 5, firefighting measures of the SDS. Section 11, toxicological information, includes routes of exposure, related symptoms, and acute and chronic effects. Before we move on, it's important to note that OSHA will not enforce 4 of the last 5 sections found in the SDS, Sections 12 through Sections 15, because these sections fall within other agencies' jurisdictions. Section 12, ecological information, provides data from toxicity tests performed on aquatic and/or terrestrial organisms, evaluating the environmental impact if the chemical were released into the environment. Section 13 is focused on disposal consideration and identifies proper disposal practices, recycling or reclamation information, and safe handling practices, which should refer the reader to Section 8 of the SDS. Essentially, Section 13 identifies the potential for the chemical to persist and degrade in the environment, or to move from the soil to the groundwater, or other possible adverse effects, such as environmental fate, ozone layer depletion potential, photochemical ozone creation potential, endocrine disrupting potential, and or global warming potential. Section 14, Transport Information, provides guidance on classification for shipping and transportation by road, air, rail, or sea, and may include the UN four-figure identification number of the substance, UN proper shipping name, transport hazard class, environmental hazards, guidance for transport in bulk, and any other special precautions. Section 15, Regulatory Information, identifies any health, safety, or environmental regulations not indicated anywhere else on the SDS. This may include information from any national or regional regulatory agency, such as OSHA, DOT, EPA, or the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Section 16 is designated as an area for any additional information that needs to be provided, such as an indication of when the SDS was made or revised, or a possible statement of where the changes have been made to the previous version of the SDS. In closing our review of safety data sheets, it's important that we remind you of the importance of employers understanding their responsibilities to their employees, which is that all safety data sheets must be readily accessible to all employees. They may be kept in a binder or on computers, as long as all employees have immediate access to the information without leaving their work area when needed, and a backup is available for rapid access to the SDS in the case of a power outage or other emergency. This concludes our review of the OSHA revisions as they work to align their hazard communication standard with the United Nations globally harmonized system of classification and labeling of chemicals. The two significant changes contained in the revised standard require the use of new labeling elements and a standardized format for safety data sheets, formerly known as material safety data sheets. As mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, the first compliance date of the revised hazard communication standard is December 1st, 2013. By this date, employers must have trained their workers on the new label element and the new SDS format. As mentioned, this training video has been designed to meet these OSHA requirements. As an employer, you must show this video to all of your employees by December 1st, 2013, while also documenting the date this training took place. Please note that the new labeling elements and safety data sheets discussed in this training video are not required to be in place by December 1st, 2013, only training on what these changes entail. However, the ServPro Professional Cleaning Products team, in order to best serve our ServPro customers, is already working to create new SDSs and labels that will be compliant with this new standard. This is a large project, but we fully expect to have compliant labels and SDSs for our products in 2014, well ahead of our 2015 deadlines. Thank you for your time, and hopefully now you have a better understanding of some of the OSHA revisions. And remember, stay classy, Tallahassee. Hey, where's my gear? Additional reference material related to these OSHA changes can be found at the following websites.